A startling discovery at an underground bunker in Iran. The UN nuclear watchdog finding the highest level of enriched uranium ever inside that country. Of course, Iran claims it's only enriching uranium to produce nuclear power, not nuclear weapons. But the new finding puts it over the level needed for energy production. Iran says it overshot its enrichment target by accident. But it's all raising suspicions. Iran is saying one thing and doing another just to stall for time, as a U.S.-led push by global powers works to keep Iran's nuclear program in check. Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland is host of Fox News Live's DEFCON 3, and we love to have her expertise on issues like this. KT, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right,
it defies imagination, because on one hand, Iran is saying, look, we really are not doing any nuclear weapons program here. We just need nuclear energy. We need nuclear isotopes for our medical purposes. On the other hand, what are they doing? They're enriching uranium. Now we've seen that they're enriching it to the highest level ever. We found underground nuclear sites that we didn't know about before. We know that they're doing a number of things that they're not telling us about. But at the same time, they're saying, don't look over here behind the curtain. Look over here at the negotiations. We're really good guys. The problem with this is that eventually they're going to say, oh, wow, we've got nuclear weapons. We're a nuclear weapons state. And what does that do? It makes them the most powerful country in that part of the world with their hands on the world's oil supply. And that's how it affects us. That's why we care.
Why do we continue then to have these sanctions, to have these negotiations, to do this cat and mouse, this back and forth, not to look over here but to look over there? Yeah. Why do we continue through various administrations to agree to that?
Look, here's the reason. It's because we don't have any good options with this. Nobody wants a nuclear Iran. Nobody wants a Middle East which everyone has nuclear weapons, or Iran has its hands on the world's oil supply because of its nuclear weapons status. On the other hand, what's the other option? Bomb Iran? Everyone realizes that if the United States, Israel, the West bombs Iran's nuclear sites, Iran retaliates, potentially closes the Strait of Hormuz. There's a larger regional war that ensues, and it probably drags the United States in. Nobody wants either one of those options. Bomb Iran, let Iran get the bomb. That's why we have looked again and again for some third option. I mean, President Bush, one of the reasons behind going into Iraq was that thought that a post-Saddam Hussein Iraq would be pro-American, strong, and would be a counterweight to Iran. That hasn't worked out that way. At best, Iraq is going to be Iran's puppet. It's going to be weak. It's certainly not going to be what President Bush intended it. So President Obama comes into office and he says, well, the problem is we haven't negotiated. So he starts out for 3 years extending the hand of friendship for negotiations. Those haven't worked. That's why they're now imposing sanctions. The sanctions haven't even come into effect yet. They don't even come into effect until later in the summer. And the question is, will they be enough to get Iran to negotiate away its nuclear weapons? I think it's very unlikely.
Well, in the meantime, while the negotiations continue, of course, leaders in Israel, despite sort of veiled warnings from the U.S., say we're not taking anything off the table. And by the way, as you know, the Department of State has sent the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Wendy Sherman, is supposed to be in Tel Aviv today. The State Department says this is what she's doing in Israel to reaffirm our unshakable commitment to Israel's security. Do we have one? Is this visit to them enough?
Well, that's the whole point. And Shannon, you've hit the key of all this is not so much what does the United States feel? Are we going to be worried about a nuclear Iran? Are we going to be able to contain a nuclear Iran? It's Israel. Israel lives in that neighborhood. Who is Israel? Israel is the sons and daughters and grandchildren of people who survived the Holocaust. So they look at the head of the Iranian armed forces last week who said our goal is the annihilation of Israel. They can't say that, oh, well, they don't really mean it. They have to assume that's a serious threat, given who they are, given the neighborhood they live in, given the history they've had. So the question is, will the State Department official who goes to Israel today, will she be able to say to the Israelis, trust us, you know, we really think we can get Iran to the negotiating table and they can give up their nuclear weapons program? Or is Israel going to conclude, as Netanyahu has already said, you know, Israel's got to defend Israel for itself, by itself, and Israel has to make that decision of whether they want to go it alone or whether they're going to trust the United States to somehow stop Iran's nuclear program.
KT, it often feels like the chess game that will not end. Thank you very much for lending us your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Shannon.